This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and 11 Alive anchor Maria Martin. The Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So do you all feel like this is a make or break year for Ra? We'll discuss. And there are some guys who actually signed up to go in despite a 5-week break and get better. Do you like it? What do you think about it? We'll talk about that as well. And a big national outlet. Imagine that. Pick the Falcons offense as a breakout candidate. Are they? We'll discuss. But first things first, let's talk about what one of our own had to say about what we hope will be a great season for a rookie. So Jarvis, our own Tori McElhaney, who of course joins us on our Monday football party, also wrote an article on AtlantaFalcons.com. Of course, she is the senior reporter over there, and it was about James Pearce Jr. So she talked about Jeff Ulbrich, and of course, how when you listen to him, he gets excited talking about James Pearce Jr. It's hard for you not to get excited when you hear him talk about him as well and what JPJ could be this upcoming season. But what are some realistic expectations for JPJ in year one that you're excited about?
Can he break the rookie rushing record? Sack record, right? You know, Mike Pearce. Oh gosh. Ooh.
Uh-oh. Jarvis is having NBA hangover? Wait a minute. NBA draft hangover for
that draft was long. It's okay.
Right. Back in 1983, the rookie sack record was 7 sacks. And I think that, you know, and when you think about the other names on that list too, Andre Bruce, he got 6 sacks in his rookie year. You know, of course, he ended up being bust of all busts for the Atlanta Falcons. But in Takk McKinley, it was on there with 6 as well in his rookie season. So I think that if knowing what we know about how Andre Bruce and Takk McKinley turned out, yeah, can he get 6 sacks? 6 sacks will be pretty doggone solid. 1 sack away from the actual team record. Yeah, I think that would be something that I wouldn't be like super happy, but I'll be like, okay, that's a solid season for him, because when you think about just his build and everything like that, and I hear Jeff Ulbrich gushing over him and going crazy over him and stuff like that, I have to hold my mule, because I look at it from a standpoint of Jeff Ulbrich, Jock Smith, all those guys, position coaches, Nate Ollie, all those guys, yeah, they're gonna gush over him because they picked him. You know, so you know, for me, it's hard for me to kind of look at how they feel about him, and me kind of get more excited about it. I'm excited because he definitely has the build. You know, he has the look, he has the speed and all that stuff. But my thing with him, my biggest question for him always has been, what's your repertoire look like? All right. And how consistent are you getting to the quarterback? True enough, yeah, you see the speed and all that stuff, but can you put that all together? Because Leonard Floyd said something that I thought was just super powerful, and I think that it just speaks to his development and why he was able to be so productive later on in his career. When he left Chicago, he was I think a top 10 pick for the Chicago Bears. He was considered a bust. Yeah. But until he said, hey, man, I need some help in getting to the quarterback. You know what he called? Mr. Pass Rush himself, Chuck Smith. He said, yeah, man, let me get this work. And then he started to you saw the production. You saw what he was able to do out there with the Rams and just be one of those guys that you can pretty much expect to be a double-digit sack guy. So for me, that's why I feel like that development for James Pearce is going to be a thing that potentially get him there. But in his year one, I'm looking at, okay, you should be able to at least get 6 sacks based off your talent alone.
Yeah. And I think, Maria, that you can say both things are true, that you can be excited about James Pearce Jr. should he get into, I'll say that 5-6 sack space. You can also be realistic about that based on how Jarvis laid it out in terms of what we've even seen here locally with the Falcons across time. But for you, what maybe is an excited expectation, like, woo, I know what this guy, I think I know what this guy can do, but also, okay, let's keep it real. He's a rookie coming into the NFL with some lofty goals that need to be achieved or reached, but there are people around him who can help with that.
First of all, shout out to Jarvis because I'm officially a part of the family. It took long enough, man. I love this podcast for so long. I told you I was going to wear this shirt too. Came in the mail. I was like running around my kitchen. I was so excited. Anyways, back to why we're excited about James Pearce Jr. Enough about the t-shirt.
Love the color.
One thing that I think a lot of people need to remember is that curbing our expectations is always key with a second first rounder. And even though the Falcons, their initial plan was to pick James Pearce Jr. and then they were pleasantly surprised and Jalen was sitting there, it doesn't mean that the expectation should be sky high for him. And I get it. I hear the coaches and I see him as Jarvis, as I believe what my eyes see. And with my own two eyes, you look at this kid and you think, oh my gosh, he's going to be something special. And his numbers at Tennessee, I think they back it up. It's putting it all together. He did that. He had 10 sacks in 2023, then followed it up with 7.5. That's a little bit of a drop off, but that's still pretty high. And so I think that he can consistently get after the quarterback. I'm not concerned about that. But one thing that we as Falcons watchers and Falcons fans, you guys as well, we haven't had a first round draft pick to evaluate in a long time on the defensive side of the football. So the expectations, that's what I mean by curbing our expectations. We don't really know what the expectations should be because Terry Fontenot loves him an offensive player in the first round. Well, now you've got two defensive players to look at, both of which I believe will be starters, both of which I believe will contribute at a pretty high clip. It's putting it all together, like Jarvis said. I think getting after the quarterback is not his issue. I think that he's also very motivated by that. You've seen it already in OTAs. Not that they're able to do full things as to getting after the quarterback. That'll come in training camp. You'll get a little bit more of a sample size from James Pearce Jr. in that aspect. But these guys already were so high on him that they were going to pick him first. So they have the belief of if we were only going to have one player in the first round, it was going to be James Pearce Jr. Yeah. Just because Jalen Walker was sitting there, obviously the conversation changed. It doesn't necessarily believe that, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they believe in Jalen Walker more. It's just that's a guy you can't pass on. So I understand it in that breath. James Pearce Jr., I think, is going to be very special. The only scary thing to him, if you want to call it scary, was those questions heading into the draft about his character, which we all know he's had his new teammates kind of step up for him and say character issues, like this guy's the best. So I think that, that's a sign of maturity already. And we're not even to July. We're not even to training camp. So I think he's going to put everything together. I think our expectations should be high, but not sky high. So I think they should be pretty up there.
Yeah. And I think, again, that's looking at it, Maria, with a good level head on your shoulders about what true expectations can be for a rookie and for a new defensive scheme that's going to be put into place, not just for him, but they're going to be that whole defense, and especially those guys last year, some of whom are under, all right, guys, let's count back. Some might be under their fourth, right? Because if we go back to Dean Pease and then we go to Ryan Nielsen, then we go to Jimmy Lake. Now we're talking about Jeff Ulbrich. So it's not just about James Pearce Jr., Aaron, and what he can do, but it's also about all of the pieces around him, what they do, how they're able to function and execute in Jeff Ulbrich's defense. So many of the things that kind of make you or allow you to be excited, but also make you have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah, I think you bring up a great point with all the defensive coordinator coaching turnover. That's one of the reasons why, the Falcons haven't had maybe as much success developing some of their defensive players that they've taken reasonably high the last, 4 or 5 years, because they're constantly changing schemes. And this guy wants this and this guy wants another thing. And like you're kind of fitting a square peg in a round hole, and then you're like, oh, this guy's a perfect fit in this defense, and then they change defense next year, and then it's like, okay, well, now he's back to being and so ultimately when we talk about the long-term development of guys like Jalen Walker and James Pearce, I think having that sort of stability at the defensive coordinator spot, hoping that Jeff Ulbrich is going to be around for more than just a year, or be around for 3 to 5 or more years as the Falcons defensive coordinator. I think will definitely benefit them. And sort of piggybacking on what both Jarvis and Maria said when it comes to what are expectations for James Pearce, like I think people should be excited. I know for me, as someone who famously never has high expectations for rookies, I always temper my expectations for rookies. And with a guy like James Pearce and Jalen Walker in the same boat, like for me, it's like I'm in wait and see mode to kind of see what they do in training camp, piggybacking on what Maria said, because like up till now, it's just like this ain't real football, Yeah. It's like, it's practice, but it's not even like real football practice. It's just like half practice at this stage. And so like, for me, like I want to see what they look like when they're in real practice. And then when we get to the preseason, and then when we get to the joint practices, like that's to me where I'm going to kind of set my expectations for these guys. But like, it's interesting just because like, Jarvis throws these numbers out there, and you're like, can he get to 6 or 7 sacks? And that would be the highest for like a Falcons rookie in a very long time. Then you look at like what's the average sack production from a first round pick over the last decade? It's like 5.5 sacks. Then you look at the 2 first round picks that Jeff Ulbrich had in New York, and Will McDonald and Jermaine Johnson, and they had like 2.5 and 3 sacks as rookies, and part of that was due to the fact that they weren't necessarily high on the depth chart. And so it's like it's hard to sort of like you look at this number and you're like, oh, you should be really excited about what James Pearce is going to do. And then you look at these other numbers, you're like, well, maybe I should temper my excitement. So that's where all that to say is like ultimately it'll be decided on the field. And so I kind of go into it like, okay, if you can get the 4 to 6 sacks, that will be to me a good number for them as rookies. If they can get higher than that, then I think that will we'll see if they can do that. But that's kind of where I set my expectations.
2 things. One, in OTAs, I know we're not getting into real football, but there was a full out brawl at practice one of the days that I was out there. And I just kept thinking, guys, we're in shorts. It's not July. Can we relax? So I think that actually could give you some kind of expectation that these guys are hungry. They're fired up. So I thought that was fun. Also, I think you bring up a really interesting point, Aaron, about coordinator changes and can we get some stability? Like, I totally agree that the changeover has been at way too high of a clip for the Falcons. But at this point, this day and age in the NFL, turnover is literally at the top of the list. And so at some point, we have to kind of understand that you're going to have coaching changes. You're going to have guys changing over. And so that can't be an excuse for a Kyle Pitts. It can't be an excuse for an AJ Terrell. I mentioned multiple people. I didn't just want to throw Kyle under the bus, okay? So I think that the coordinator changes at some point. We can't really rely on that being an excuse for guys developing.
Yeah. And I definitely hear what you're saying. I think it's one of those things where it wouldn't be the whole reason, but it just maybe plays a part, because at the end of the day, I think it's just kind of no different than any job that you have. When there's turnover, some people are going to adjust pretty quickly. Some are not going to adjust so quickly. So, yeah, I think it's not necessarily the full reason, but maybe just an explanation or one rationale for why this Falcons defense seems like sometimes it's on a start, stop, or like Aaron and I used to say post game last year, what do we call it? The Oreo effect. Like, hey, we'd see them do good, and then they look like a hot, funky mess in the middle of the game, and then somehow, some way, they would like show up in kind of just enough time for the games that the Falcons actually won. So less Oreo this year, but hey, look, if it gets you to a win, you get it how you can. There was an interesting comparison from Jerry Gray, who actually is one of the holdovers. And maybe that's why that secondary somehow from time to time looks like it does, in a good way. I say that with all truth, if you will. But his comparison was actually to a player whom I just loved, at Javon Curse. He said, quote, I just remember when I was with Tennessee and I was lucky enough to be on that staff in 99. We drafted a guy named Javon Curse. This guy was a rookie. And he doesn't know anything. But all of a sudden, at the end of the year, you're going to the Super Bowl and he has 15 sacks. So, Maria, maybe going to your point, while a James Pearce Jr. doesn't know everything, I mean, man, if that guy, James Pearce Jr., does what Javon Kearse did as a rookie, I mean, can you imagine? I'm looking at this because I had to go back and look at it. 14 and a half sacks, 6 forced fumbles, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's mad crazy. So
he also he was second in voting for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. Exactly.
Right. Oh my God.
When you think
Sorry.
about,
I got excited talking about Javon Kearse. Yeah.
Trust me, he is still one of my favorite players of all time. Like when I hear somebody talk about him, I just smile because the freak. I mean, like that nomenclature was that was
before the combine.
Exactly. Yeah, and you think
because
about
play.
Right. And it's like he was he actually lived up to those expectations and then some. So I was just thinking, Maria, imagine 14 and a half, and okay, I'm doing some Xavier math, 7.25. Yeah. So imagine 7.25 is not a sack thing. So we'll call it a 7.5. But imagine if James Pearce Jr. had half that production, like 7.5 sacks or 6 forced fumbles, or he somehow is at the top of the conversation for defensive rookie of the year, or to Jarvis's point, defensive player of the year overall in the NFL. I mean, Maria, what are we thinking here? Like, that could be exciting. Jerry Gray's words, not mine.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to keep this really brief because I know Jarvis is chomping at the bit to talk about this specific thing. The only thing that I really want to say is that, good on Jerry for bringing up this comparison, even though I think it's really wild and lofty to put out there, because we're talking about a team who has been consistently near the bottom in total sacks. We all know this. It was beat into our heads last year, and literally it was, okay, Maria, what story do you have this week? Well, they aren't getting after the quarterback, and it was every single week. So just as the players and coaches get annoyed about those questions, it was seemingly the only question to ask. And so I think if James can contribute even half, which we know he's probably not going to get to those numbers that Jerry threw around. I'm an optimist. I'm a forever optimist, but that's wild to me. So if you go half of that, then I think we're in business. And truly it would justify the move back up into the first round, which I don't know. You don't have to justify it to me. I like James Pearce Jr. as a pickup. So I thought that was fine. But for a lot of people, giving up prospective picks and all this stuff really made people uncomfortable. However, I think if he can get half, that just justifies, see, look what we did. We've now improved the defensive side of the ball. We're going to the playoffs. All these things that have been missing for the Falcons, I think they get there if James can get to half of that number. I'm not going to say that number because that's crazy.
I know that's crazy. That's like nasty work, Aaron. If we're having a conversation about JPJ doing J Kearse numbers, like in halftime, not even real time, full time. Like, can you imagine?
It's hard to imagine, T, because it's like I've never seen that before from a Falcons player outside of that one Vic Beasley season. And that season felt like it was because I remember doing a podcast back then. I'm like, I don't think these numbers are real. I think he's going to come back down to earth. And everybody was like, Aaron, you're just a hater. And I'm like, yes, I am a hater, but I'm also a hater.
You're actually a hater.
I'm a hater, but I'm right. So why are you believing? So like, it's one of those things where like, I want to see this from James Pearce Jr. I absolutely want to see this, but like Maria said, I'm not going into the season expecting him to break Javon Kearse's sack records. I mean, we've had seasons where the Falcons barely hit 15 sacks. So for one player to come in and do that right out the gates would be the most incredible thing I've probably ever seen in my life. And so I would love to see it, but I don't expect.
Jarvis, may I say this before I let you wrap us up? Yeah, may I say that we are living in a world of different things happening on the Atlanta sports landscape. Mm-hmm. 2 months ago, we saw the Atlanta Falcons do something unprecedented in the first round by drafting a dog in the name of Jalen Walker. The Atlanta Hawks turned around and did it again last night and drafted Asa Newell. So, Jarvis, if we're living in a different world here in Atlanta where things that have never been done are happening, why can't we just be happy and believe these things can happen?
Look. If James Pearce Jr.
That was real dramatic, right?
If James Pearce Jr. gets 14 and a half sacks,
No, 7.5. We're saying half
We're
would
going
still
half.
be off the chain. Come on.
If he gets 7.5 sacks, because I was about to say something, but I'm gonna hold my.
Jarvis. Oh,
Go ahead. Go ahead. What's holding you back?
So let me say this. Let me
Stand
say
on business, man.
So I know I'm gonna answer your question, T, but let me just say what I was thinking, right? Because I like to get stuff out my mind. You know what I'm saying? Because it bothers me, when it stays in there too long. So if James Pearce Jr. gets 14.5 sacks, do you understand that I will lose my credential? Because I will run through the press box with my shirt off.
Has that ever been done? Speaking of stuff that's never been done before, I don't think that has ever been done.
Like,
Yes.
if it's the last home game of the season, and I'm sitting up there and this dude got 13 sacks. Do you understand? I will lose my credential. Like, I will.
Your shirt, evidently.
I will lose my shirt. Like, I will literally lose my shirt. Like, I used to take my shirt off quite frequently back in the day. You know what I'm saying? When I was in the club and I was working out every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, back at school, I even had a little theme song. You know what I'm saying? Bone Crusher, outside the club, think my pump. You know what I'm saying?
That was the song.
That was my theme song. You know what I mean?
You would be a Bone Crusher guy, Jarvis.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I totally knew that.
I used to have a little black wife beat on. You know what I'm saying? A little black. You know what I'm saying? I used to do my thing. But anyway, but yeah, I would straight lose my stuff if the Falcons were somehow able to draft a guy that a lot of people thought that they overpaid for, or whatever, how you want to use it, from an asset standpoint. And that man comes out there and does that because, like, I went down a rabbit hole. Like, that man, Javon Curse was a Pro Bowler. He was a first-team All-Pro. He was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting. And like you mentioned, T, he also was Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like, and he started his career 3 straight seasons with double-digit sacks. That man was on the Hall of Fame type track before he, started dealing with injuries and all that stuff. The dude was an absolute freak. Literally, that was his nickname. And they gave it to him because of not his workouts, combine workouts and all that stuff. They gave it to that man because he was that dude on the field. So, yeah, but as far as if he gets half, I'll be elated. I'll be elated because I know that Jalen Walker, once they get into him being that kind of stand-up / edge guy, I know they talk about edge, but I know you can't keep that dude right there and to be able to maximize him being being a top half of the draft type guy. So I think that if he has 7.5 and you got Jalen with like maybe 5.5, oh my God, that's 12 sacks. Like Free mentioned, shoot, that's almost a whole season for this team. So yeah, I'm gonna temper my expectation because when Jared Gray said that, I was like, no, don't do that. Do you know how good that man was? Oh, he was so great. It was amazing. So yeah, but I think that when you look at guys who come in and have that type of impact in their first year, because he has the rookie record for 14.5 sacks. Then right behind him, Alden Smith, same type bill, 6'4", 260. You got Javon Curse, 6'4", 6'5", 260. And you got, James Pearce Jr., he's 6'5", 240, almost 250. So I get the comparison, but man, just hold off a little bit. But oh my gosh, if he does come through on that, oh my gosh, that would be crazy. Especially if we get like 3 of them in like the first game against Baker Mayfield, because that would really make me happy. Yeah, the Falcons might be on to something.
Right. And to think that we were looking forward to the game in Week 18 because it was going to be a rivalry game against the New Orleans Saints, but clearly that's not what we should be looking forward to for the last game of the season. It should be Jarvis in all his fashion. It would be
interesting if Baker Mayfield gets sacked by 27 3 times. That would be, I'll tell you that.
That would be interesting if you say so. I still say you swinging your shirt around like a helicopter might be the thing in the booth. But I digress. When we come back, we'll talk about whether someone's job is really on the line.
Yes, indeed.
Like Jarvis's would be if he did that.
Do I need to play Petey Pablo for your walkout song on Sports Extra?
We're moving in that direction.
I will not walk out. I will refuse to walk out, Maria. I promise you.
You'll be already out there, and I'll hit play.
I'll walk off the stage.
Get us out of here. Get us out of here. We'll be back. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier with Monarch Money? It can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. So what's maybe one surprising thing you notice when you start tracking your spending? Well, Monarch will help you to see exactly how much you might be spending on takeouts or subscriptions that you don't even use. And maybe you have a financial goal. We have gotten through almost midway through the year, and maybe there's a financial goal out there that you haven't taken seriously. Monarch Money can help you get serious about it. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half of your first year. So after you finish up with the Atlanta Football Party, the Thursday edition, take control of your finances with Monarch Money at monarchmoney.com. In an attempt to get the show back on the trail, on the rails, I'm going to switch over to Maria, and we're going to get serious. Maria, we've had conversations about this is a make or break year for Terry Fontenot. No, over the years, Arthur Blank has actually had the head coach or the GM tied together when it comes to their job status. Now, of course, this is a little bit different because he decided to part ways with Arthur Smith, but retain Terry Fontenot and bring in Raheem Morris, of course. But do you feel like with that in mind, it's still a make or break year for Morris as well? I think, and when I say that, Maria, I think we all know it's make or break for Terry. But do you feel like it's that same level of make or break, that same level of pressure for Raw?
I don't. I really don't. I think this is only year 2 for Raw, and we've already seen him make changes that I believed was necessary at the end of last year. And given the way things played out with the quarterback situation, you got to let Michael Penix have a season at least. And then maybe he looks great after a season and there's no more worries. He made a coordinator change. You know, I can go on and on. The pressure's not in the same breath for Raw as it is for Terry. Terry now has had, I think, a very generous amount of time to turn things around, and this would really be the breaking point. This is still a team that hasn't made the playoffs since 2017, and mind you, a team that should have made the playoffs last year. Yeah. So I think it's getting increasingly more frustrating from a general manager standpoint. You remember when Arthur Smith was the head coach, and there was a very vocalized, hey, we're doing this together. We're unified. We're this, that, and the third. Well, Raw and Terry do say that they work together a lot, but it's less of we're coming together, we are one person. And I think that there's a reason for that. Raheem is very smart. He understands that there is a bit more pressure on Terry Fontenot than I think himself. Everybody knows that I love talking about pressure in the NFL because I think it's everywhere. Of course, there's pressure for Raw, but not you're going to get fired if things don't go the way they're supposed to this year. Terry, on the other hand, you're looking at this is a make it or break it year for him. So no, I don't believe so. If things go totally south, which I don't believe that they will, I think this is going to be a very good year for the Falcons. Again, forever optimist, but still they have actually the pieces. We said that last year, but then you're still kind of scratching your head and wondering, is it really there on defense? And it proved to be not there. So now that you have made significant strides in not only free agency this year, which of course they did last year as well, but there were a couple of guys that didn't pan out, as we know. Mm-hmm. I think that this is going to play into both of their favors at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think Maria makes a great point, Aaron. This is the first time in recent memory, if ever, that we've seen Arthur Blank say, hey, with my GM going out the door or with my coach going out the door, so goes my GM. So yeah, there is a little bit of separation there. And it feels like separation in terms of how a Terry Fontenot might be evaluated versus how a Raheem Morris might be evaluated, because Arthur Blank did make the decision to part ways with Arthur Smith but not Terry Fontenot. So maybe on some level, that might say that while the heat is still there, it's a pressure cooker for Raheem Morris. Maybe the pressure cooker is not ratcheted up because, number one, we've seen Arthur Blank say that those are two separate entities. And number two, I think Maria makes a great point, and you guys, the three of you, might remember, but we always heard, like with Dan Quinn and Thomas Dimitrov, it wasn't co-conspirator, it was co-something. But anyway, it was always co-this and co-that.
Co-team builders, yeah.
Yes, co-team builders. So we don't kind of like hear, we kind of don't hear that. And maybe that's to Raheem Morris's advantage because maybe there's not the same type of pressure or level of pressure as with Terry.
Yeah, I think it's definitely fair to say that there is considerably more pressure on Terry Fontenot than there is on Raheem Morris. I don't think that means that there isn't still a lot of pressure on Raheem Morris, because I think for me, when you look at Raheem Morris as this quote unquote CEO type head coach, those types of coaches are really kind of made or broken by their coordinator hires, right? Where like they're not necessarily the guys that are, and we did see this a little bit last year, where they sort of are taking ownership of one side of the ball as, either the offensive or defensive play caller. And obviously Raheem Morris had to kind of step in and take a little bit more ownership of the defense, given its struggles last year. But you've already seen one quote unquote disaster hire on the defensive side of the ball with Jimmy Lake, and now you're replacing him with Jeff Ulbrich, and you need that to kind of pay off in order for you to feel better about the direction of this team under Raheem Morris. And then you have the questions around Zach Robinson as the offensive play caller, who did a good job with the offense last year. But, I think I can only speak for myself. I think there are expectations were, potentially high that, he would do a better job, and you need to kind of see him do that better job. And everybody talks about this offensive potential sort of driving the ship. And it's like, can you get a top 10 offense out of this collection of players? And I think we all recognize the potential there, and you just want to see it come to fruition. And if they're not able to achieve that, then you're sitting there going like, okay, Raheem, like your coordinator hires are fine, but like they haven't necessarily, done the thing that you want them to do. And it's like, giving these guys another year, is that going to solve the problem? Or are we going to get year 3 Zach Robinson that's going to produce that top 10 offense? Are we going to get year 2 Jeff Ulbrich that's suddenly going to produce a top half of the league defense that we haven't seen in Atlanta for so long? And so like those to me are the questions that you have to answer by the end of the season. And I think if the Falcons are on a path to that, then by year's end, then you feel good about the direction of this team under Raheem Morris. But if you're sitting there wondering about those things, I do think there's going to be a lot more questions about whether or not the Falcons should, move forward with Raheem Morris as their sort of head coach at that point in time. So, there is a lot more pressure on Terry Fontenot. This is a make or break year. I don't think there's the same level of pressure on Raheem Morris as we sit here today, but who knows where that's going to be 6 months from now if this team isn't winning, if this team isn't living up to the expectations that we have at this point in the summer.
Yeah, I think that I'm with Aaron on that one. As far as, we understand what it is for Terry Fontenot as far as, hey man, get it right or get going. I think that's pretty fair to say. But as far as the pressure from Raheem Morris, and I think a lot of it comes from the time management situations and skill sets that were on full display, and everybody and their mama saw it, and anybody that knew about football, like, hey man, why don't you take a time out here? Why you holding on to the timeouts going into the halftime? Like, you don't get money for them when you cash them in at the end of the game, so it was just so too many questions. And then, keep it funky, keep it a buck. A lot of people wanted Bill Belichick as their head coach, and see how that's working out for all you people. I see you. I know you're out there. I know you wanted to have him in here, but see what is going on right now. So be quiet. Just continue to be quiet and keep looking straight and keep your head up, because I know people know that I'm talking about you. So for me, I think that when you have the guy who had all these Super Bowls, and all these rings and trophies and stuff, and people thought that he was going to bring them down here and put them out at Flowery Branch, and we were going to get credit for it, and you choosing for a guy who had a losing record as a head coach, hasn't been a head coach in quite some time, but from my standpoint, I thought he would be a good candidate, and that's why I feel like a lot of the small voices who are impatient, and that's their standard, right? Being a Falcons fan, I understand, I get it, but that's why I feel like a lot of people thinking that the heat is on for him, but I don't necessarily agree with that. But there is pressure to perform. This is the league, like it happens, and who knows if Arthur Blank might change his mind. He was like, you know what, things didn't go this way. Yeah, Terry, you out of here too. Hey man, 2 years. People talking about you don't know what you're doing as far as time management and all this stuff and call timeouts. Like, hey man, this second year, I ain't really see you get better, and you're 8-9 again. Hey man, I'm not gonna say that Arthur Blank might not consider it.
Yeah, I think it really depends too as well. And dare I say this, but it does feel like make or break from a playoff postseason perspective. But I also think it's make or break in that if you are 8-9, or even if you are 9-8, heck, you could be 10-7 in the NFC and not make the postseason. Then the question becomes, how did you get there? Like, did you get there on a trajectory where you were slow to start the season because you had a lot of rookies in critical positions who needed to get caught up to the speed of the NFL? Or did you go out like you did last year on a losing note, if you will, and the way that you lost, that might ultimately dictate how things play out as well, in addition to the record itself and whether or not they make it to the postseason, and how things play out in one particular room on the offensive side of the ball may be dictated by how seriously one guy took some off-season work versus another. We'll talk about that when we come back. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Rougier. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougier Ready. Rougier Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougier's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rougier might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So head to Rougier.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougier website for full safety information. So guys, we found out actually this maybe the last 24 hours, if I remember correctly, in hearing about Charlie Warner, who had signed up to be part of Tight End U or TEU in Nashville. We also found out that Kyle Pitts was not there. But let's talk about Charlie and his decision to go, because we know that this exists for tight ends, for linebackers, for wide receivers. And it seems like it's a good look that Charlie Warner said, hey, I know there are some skills that I can bring to the table to kind of add another element to my game, or maybe even potentially have a bigger role. Do you think, Aaron, with him making that decision, being in that space with some of the top tight ends in the NFL, that he can maybe add another element to his game and maybe have a bigger impact on this offense this season?
I mean, not particularly. I think Charlie Warner, what Charlie Warner does well, he does well. I don't expect Charlie Warner at whatever his age is, 28, 29, whatever he is, to suddenly develop the skill set to catch 100 catches or 50 catches or anything like that. Like, my guy had a career high of 13 catches or something like that last year. So I'm not expecting Charlie Warner to suddenly develop a brand new skill set or whatever. Now, maybe he gets more opportunities because of a certain other tight end in the room is getting less opportunities. And so someone's got to get, those targets on those checkdowns and whatnot. And so maybe he can get better development there. But at the end of the day, like, you know, what Charlie Warner does well is he gets after in the run game. And like, I don't think going to tight end university is going to change that. He's already proven that he's one of the best in the league when it comes to that element of that. So, you know, I appreciate him for, you know, if he could pick up a couple of little tips or whatever, like a little shoulder fake or something like that from George Kittle and, you know, TJ Hawkinson or whoever else is at tight end university. Like, I'm for it, but like, I'm not going into the season being like, oh, Charlie Warner went to tight end university. He's going to have 50 catches and break out. No, like he's going to block his butt off. And that's what he is here to do. And I'm no complaints whatsoever. That man is the closest thing we have to a fullback. And you know how much I love a fullback. So I will take what I can get from Charlie Warner.
Yes, you Keith Smith apologist. We do know and we do understand and have no issue with that, by the way. And I think you're right. Like, you get to a point and place in your career where your floor is your floor and kind of your ceiling, if there's any more ceiling there, is there. And last year, 7 receptions off of 12 targets was where Charlie Warner landed. So I guess if we're talking about, I'm kind of using the JPJ Javon Curse example, Jarvis, and where can we look at him? Not maybe we looked at that as a half of, we'll look at this as a doubling up. Can Charlie Warner maybe double up what he gave the Falcons last season? I mean, that could still be a level up.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it from the standpoint of, right, so what tight end really likes blocking? George Kittle. I think he enjoys putting his hands on folks and like putting people on the ground and like sustaining blocks and blocking to the echo of the whistle. Like George Kittle, like, y'all check it out. The man loves blocking. So if he can pick up any little extra technique, like, yeah, man, George, you know, when I'm in motion and stuff like that, how you get that angle on that particular, on that defensive end, on that edge guy, you know, when I'm going up against a bigger guy, like what are some of the things that you like to do? Like asking questions, because that's like each one teach one is such a great philosophy in football, because what you learn from a player, which probably more than likely you have a lot more respect for that player and his know-how because of the numbers that he's done and things that he's achieved in the league. You probably have that a little bit more so than your coach a lot of times. And when you think about it, when you look at it from that standpoint, so that's why I feel like the fact that he's saying, hey, I want to be in this space. I want to be able to gather as much information as possible. I'm going to take it home with me and I'm going to apply what applies, right? Like talking to Travis Kelce about, man, how you get into the Hall of Fame, bro? Like with all these catches, it's probably not going to happen. But hey, if I can get better at what I'm already good at by talking to a guy who really values it and he's really good at it, he's one of those two-way tight ends they would talk about. Yeah, absolutely. I think he can definitely benefit from it.
And I think that's a really good way to look at it, Maria, when Jarvis talks about the skill set and when Aaron talks about the skill set being what it is for Charlie Warner, but you can still maybe take the skills that you have. You may not be able to add to the treasure chest at this point, but maybe you just take what's in the treasure chest at this point and just fine tune it.
I think you guys are haters. I've been sitting back, listening. I'm like, man, Charlie's out here trying to get better. And y'all are like, here's your floor, here's your ceiling, here you go. No, I think that Charlie.
That's what I said.
Let me say.
That's pretty much what you said.
Let me say. Charlie.
Oh, no.
You guys are all haters, all of you. In this segment.
Oh, please be admitted hater on this show.
Moderator.
Like, no, not me.
All right. I'm just regurgitating the messaging.
That's true. So Charlie does a lot. What Charlie does well doesn't show up on the stat sheet. We've all kind of established that. And Charlie was one of the best at doing that last year in this offense. And he was such an underrated weapon to me. I mean, I would ask guys in the locker room, like, who is underrated on this offense? They would all say Charlie. Charlie did so many things to help this offense that people don't even realize. Go back and watch the tape. Anytime he's in, go back and watch the tape. See what he's doing. It is out of this world. I thought he was fantastic. However, yes, he's not really finessed his receiver aspect of the tight end position. I don't know that he's ever going to get to the elite level of the tight ends that are running tight end university. He's not as fast as Kyle Pitts. He's not as fast as some of these other guys that you're talking about. However, I do think that he can improve that element of his game. That doesn't mean he's going to get, 20 more targets or something like that. I just think that can be something that he can work on. And he may have to, because he may be relied upon a little bit more this year than I think we're realizing, just because of who knows what's going on with Kyle and who knows how much he's going to be involved. I mean, they keep saying if he's here, he's going to be involved, but I don't know. I haven't really seen much of that. So I don't know how to believe that. And so for Charlie, when you have somebody who is not as versatile as Kyle Pitts on paper, like for sure he's not 100%. Kyle's ceiling should be light years ahead of Charlie's. I do believe that this could be really beneficial for him because he is what he is, which you guys have established, but I do believe he can get better in the receiving aspect of the tight end position.
Yeah. And Maria, you know what? Hope springs eternal. Hope springs eternal. So if Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Greg Olsen are out there with this 3-day program, and hey, Brock Bowers is there, so maybe he can kind of get with another dog and kind of figure out even from the young pup how he does things. Trey McBride's there, Gunnar Helm. I mean, we're talking about 70 tight ends who are out there from across the entirety of the NFL and being tutored by a future Hall of Famer in Travis Kelce, a borderline Hall of Famer in George Kittle, maybe some would even say borderline Hall of Famer in Greg Olsen. And if nothing else, Greg Olsen's mind for the game is ridiculous. Sure. So all of that said, but Aaron, someone had the audacity and unmitigated gall and reasoning for which we do not know at this time to not attend. So I was just wondering if you had some concerns or felt some type of way or scratched your head and wondered why 8 thought it was okay not to be there.
No, I did not wonder. Look, Kyle Pitts was.
So you're okay with 8 not being there?
Yeah, he's hurt. I don't know if the injury is preventing him from.
Wait a minute. Is this Aaron with a modicum of sympathy for somebody?
I'm just saying, look, I don't spend my time in this chair critiquing what professional athletes do in the offseason. You do what you want to do, right? Like you train how you want to train. Okay. I am not a professional trainer. I'm not a kinesiologist or whatever it's called. I don't do that stuff. So
turn me up, kinesiologist.
Do whatever you do. I don't care. Like at the end of the day, all I care about is winning football games. So as long as you show up in September and help this team win football games, give a crap what you do from January to July or whatever. So for me, the thing with the Kyle Pitts thing, he attended tight end in university his first 2 years in the NFL, right? And for all we know, he may have been those 2 years and been like, there's not a whole lot I'm gleaning from this 3 days of watching Travis Kelce catch passes or whatever. I don't know. I wasn't
the Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, so I don't know what goes on at this event. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that somehow, I just looked it up. Charlie Warner has probably been to every tight end university ever because him and George Kittle are teammates, and just George Kittle puts us on, and just doing a quick Google search he's probably been there. And so we're sitting here this year in his 5th or 6th tight end university, it's suddenly something's gonna click or something. I don't know, man. I just feel like this whole notion of Kyle Pitts is not there, and so therefore, again, I know it contributes to the whole thing, and he doesn't care, and he doesn't want it, and all that stuff. But he has legit reasons. He's been there before. He's hurt now. I'm not sitting here losing any sleep over whether Kyle Pitts gets to hang out with George Kittle and learn some new wrestling moves for 3 days in June. That's me.
Wrestling moves.
So clearly, Jarvis, Aaron is more bothered by the fact that others are bothered by Kyle Pitts being there than he is bothered by Kyle Pitts not being there. So I think we've established that is really the baseline of Aaron Freeman's frustration in this space. And okay, if we're being honest, Aaron makes some great points about Kyle having gone and maybe there not have been a return on investment as far as his numbers go. But I do think it's one of those where, unfortunately for Kyle Pitts, right or wrong, and I do say this with all seriousness, it is not a good look when you have the deep veterans, some of those who are like middle veterans, if you will, and then some of the youngest, but they're the best and the brightest in the game, who are all saying, yeah, this does matter. And then you think about the returns that you always hear about from, and of course, this is more for like your pass rushers, if you will, but you hear the positives of going to these events. So I don't know. I hear what Aaron's saying, and I think it is a valid point, but I can also see where people could be concerned, like, wow, we know you're hurt, and we know maybe you've gone and there hasn't been ROI before, but still, this is right in your backyard, and you wouldn't maybe take advantage of the opportunity that maybe this year something else will click differently?
I don't think Kyle Pitts is built like that. What I mean when I say that, like, he's the type of guy that's going to march to his own beat. He's going to do what he does. And regardless of how people feel about him, like, I play with cats like Kyle Pitts. Like, I understand. Like, I get it. But when you have that mindset, you better perform. Like, the results better be there. Just like Free said, I don't care what you do. I don't know if I'm necessarily, I do kind of care. I care. Yeah. I you know what I'm saying? I can't detach like that. I care what you do in all season. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what's going to determine what you do in the regular season. You know what I'm saying? For me, so when I see Kyle Pitts not being there, this is right on brand. Like, this contributes to how we feel about him. Like, how most sane people feel about Kyle Pitts is that, hey man, whatever you get from Kyle Pitts, it's cherry on top, baby. Like, it's contract year. You know what you got to do. You either going to ball or you're not. And either you're going to sign a contract with his team, and it's up to you how much that is, or they're going to let your behind walk, dog, and you're going to be a free agent looking for another team, and people are going to be like, dang, some offensive coordinator going to be like, oh, man, I can get him right. No, like you said, if you march to your own beat, you do your thing. I ain't with all that getting all together and all that stuff and going to watch Taylor Swift and then trying to get better, you know. You better have some results behind that, you know. So that's all I gotta say about it. Like, because this is a make or break year for Kyle Pitts. Just like we talked about Terry Fontenot earlier, make or break year. Hey man, perform. We need results, or hey, you gone. It's the same thing for Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. And how about you, Maria? I mean, how do you feel about Kyle not showing up? Like, and when I say implications, just meaning sometimes with him, and not even sometimes, it's never just about on the field anymore with Kyle Pitts, if we're being honest. I mean, everything is judged and evaluated by layers up for KP. So, I mean, how did you feel when you found out, oh, not in attendance? Okay.
I feel like I'm the wild card in this scenario because I know you guys don't know what I'm about to say. I am fully on board with Aaron in this situation. I actually do not care at all that Kyle went or didn't go. And
so you're a hater.
No, I'm not a hater.
Okay, cool. That's 2 out of 4, T. Nope. We good over here, T.
Oh, please. You've been a hater the whole time. Are you talking about not being a hater for 5 seconds and you get a gold star? That's not fair. No, I do not accept.
Sorry, Maria.
No, I do not accept.
I do not accept it.
Accept your gold star.
Yeah, I get my own gold star. Tenitra, you asked me, what was my reaction to hearing this? It was, I'm not surprised, ? I wasn't really surprised. Number one, because we have heard about this injury that we kind of don't know that much about, but he has been injured throughout OTAs. He did show up when it was mandatory. Although we never got our eyes on him, we were told that he was there. So fine. He showed up when he needed to. I just, this injury, all the news of, is he here? Is he gone? I was not surprised that he didn't participate in a league-wide fraternity party for Tight End University. I don't think that that's Kyle's thing, even though, yes, he has attended it before. That's not right or wrong, in my opinion. Kyle has a lot bigger things to focus on than Tight End University when it comes to football right now, because yes, I agree, Jarvis. I think it's very much a make or break year for Kyle. But honestly, we've been saying that the last couple of years. I mean, when you become the highest drafted tight end ever, the expectation for you, whether you like it or not, is sky high every single year. You have to deliver. That is a future Hall of Fame pick because the front office put that on him. That is what it is. And when he's not measuring up to even half of that sometimes, it starts to get very frustrating for all parties involved. And Kyle, I'm sure, is the same way. So he has to figure out on his own time in the offseason, he's got to figure out what the heck has to change for him to turn a corner, because he's gone through head coaches, he's gone through quarterbacks, he's gone through offensive coordinators. The only thing to me, as I've said in the past, would be a change of scenery for Kyle, because sometimes that pays dividends for players. Sometimes that really helps. Kyle's never been the guy throughout his course with the Falcons to go the extra mile, at least that we've seen, okay? Like, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's doing something that I don't know about, he's down in Florida, he's doing some private workouts, whatever, cool. Like, totally get that. But he's not, you hear about players going the extra mile. You hear about players, what they're doing in their downtime. And to Jarvis's point, what are you doing in the offseason to give me the results that I want during football season? All that stuff matters. It does matter. I'm with Aaron that I don't care, but I'm also with Jarvis that the stuff that you do in the offseason 100% matters, because that is ultimately what's going to get you ready for July and August and then September when we start playing football. So real football. So yeah, I mean, nothing about it surprises me. We all know that Kyle should be doing a lot more than he is. I mean, you look at him, he is the prototype for a next generation tight end. I mean, it's more, he's one of the more frustrating players I've ever covered, because I know it's there and I wish that it would come out of Kyle, and for some reason still in Atlanta it hasn't.
Yeah, just one of these days I just want to be able to say 8-8, like, okay. So when we come back,
I got it. Okay.
Oh my gosh, man, he is on one today. Yes, Petey Pablo reference, TikTok reference, man. What? Come on, man. Like, I know your nephew in town. Like, man.
We were calling her old.
No, I was about to say, so I only have flavor with my nephews here. Bye, Jarvis. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Okay, so this is going to be the most sidebarish of sidebars ever. But because Jarvis took it there, I'm going to tell you, Maria, how his hateration has traumatized my life. Aaron, I will tell you how his hateration has traumatized my life, because, Maria's a former dancer, and I guess once a dancer, always a dancer. But I am a former dancer, once a dancer, always a dancer. So, Maria, Jarvis saw one of my videos from homecoming and had the audacity and unmitigated gall to say that I didn't look like I was really moving. Like, oh, okay, T, I thought you were really gonna.
Jarvis.
Yes, me, who would stand on the tabletops dancing at a ski summit, and dude said, "Oh, I didn't really see you."
Well, Jarvis, you get up and move then. Come on, let's see your dance move. What?
Hey, look, you know what I'm saying? I'm a two-step type of guy. I never admitted that I was able to dance when my ankles were more loose and didn't have decay in them. You know what I'm saying? I used to have rad top back in the day. You know what I'm saying? I used to get down.
So then how do you know what really moving looks like? Just asking.
Yeah, that would be like me saying, well, Jarvis, I don't really think your stance as a nose tackle. Like, I think you should have just, it didn't look right. Your symmetry was off. You were one step behind the rest of the interior.
No, T, it just looked like you were
snap doing a nose tackle job.
You're on your A game. My expectations for your dance moves are very high. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen you dance before. It was just, it looked like you were kind of, you know what I'm saying? Like you were trying to push
I'm with you, T. Don't worry, I got your back.
So then I go to dance class last week, and all I could hear is Jarvis saying, well, I mean, you don't really look like you're moving. What?
Wow.
Where's he?
That's awful. Jarvis, you don't even know what moving looks like.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it should be a concern. Jarvis' hateration,
He's a
paid actor sometimes.
You're just going to catch his heat, Jarvis. I'm just staying out of it. So, I'm just going to chill.
Yeah, Aaron, because you see, when Jarvis goes, like when he goes into hateration mode, like he did on poor little Tink Tink in the last segment, I mean, it can really be jarring. Just saying.
Where's your apology?
So that's how we're gonna end the show. All right, okay. Tenitra, I apologize for trying to critique your dance moves.
Yes.
I know you are an excellent dancer, and that is something that you will never lose. And I apologize.
And that's on accountability. Great job.
Yeah. I feel better about myself. Now I can go to dance class tonight, look in that mirror and say, you girl, you still got it.
Been married for 13 years, Maria, so I know how to apologize.
That's right. Good job, you've learned.
Yes, that is one. Now that is one assignment that my brother does understand very, very well.
Yes. Yes.
Anywho, thanks to our everydayers for allowing us to melt down on a regular through the entirety of this Atlanta football party. But we really sincerely appreciate it being your first listen of the day. But be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. Check out Maria Martin, host of Sports Extra on Sundays on 11 Alive. And you can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons and Sports Extra. And don't forget that Jarvis is just as big of a fan of his dancing co-host as he is of the Atlanta Falcons. See you next time.